The silk rustles against marble floors. Footsteps echo through the corridors of a Roman villa as dawn breaks over the 7 hills. A young woman extends her arms while her slave girls wrap her in layers of pristine white fabric. The morning air carries the scent of burning incense and distant sounds of the bustling forum below. But this isn't just any morning ritual. What you're witnessing would land everyone in this room behind bars today. The very fabric touching her skin, the dyes coloring her jewelry, even the way her hair is arranged. All of it breaking laws that didn't exist yet, but absolutely should have. Welcome to a world where beauty came at a price measured not in gold, but in human lives. Where fashion was literally a matter of life and death. Today, we're uncovering 7 ancient fashion trends so dangerous, so cruel, so utterly toxic, that they would be banned faster than you could say health and safety violation. I'm taking you on a journey through history's darkest runway. From Roman palaces to Chinese dynasties, from medieval Europe to ancient Egypt. We'll meet the people who wore these trends, the victims who paid the price, and discover why our ancestors were willing to risk everything for fashion. Are you ready to see just how deadly beautiful could be? Trend 1. Lead-based cosmetics, the White Death. Picture this. Renaissance Italy, 1580. The candlelit chambers of a Venetian palazzo. A noblewoman sits before her mirror as her servant approaches with a small pot of white powder. The mixture gleams like fresh snow, promising the pale complexion that marks her as aristocracy. She has no idea she's about to paint poison directly onto her face. What's in that innocent-looking pot? Lead. Pure, toxic lead mixed with vinegar to create what they called Venetian ceruse, or simply, the White Death. But why lead? In a world without electric lighting, pale skin meant you didn't work outdoors. It meant wealth, status, power. The whiter your face, the higher your position in society. Queen Elizabeth I herself slathered this toxic paste across her skin daily, building up layers so thick that courtiers described her face as looking like a painted mask. The effects were swift and merciless. First came the hair loss, then the rotting teeth. The lead seeped through their skin and into their bloodstream, causing tremors, paralysis, and eventually, madness. Many historians believe Queen Elizabeth's famous temper tantrums weren't just royal behavior, but the neurological effects of chronic lead poisoning. The most tragic part? They knew. By the 16th century, physicians had connected the white makeup to mysterious illnesses plaguing the upper classes. But the social pressure was too strong. Better to die beautiful than live common. Today, we have the FDA, the EU cosmetics regulation, and countless safety laws that would shut down any company using lead in makeup faster than you could blink. But back then, fashion was worth dying for. Literally. What would you choose? Social acceptance or your life? Unfortunately, for countless Renaissance beauties, that wasn't really a choice at all. But lead makeup was child's play compared to what's coming next. Imagine fabric so beautiful, so impossibly green, that it could kill you just by wearing it. Fabric that turned ballrooms into crime scenes and made dancing deadly. Stay with me, because this next trend makes toxic makeup look like a beauty treatment. Trend 2. Arsenic green dresses, fashion that killed. Victorian London, 1862. The gaslight flickers across the grand ballroom as ladies in emerald gowns glide across the polished floor. Their dresses shimmer with an otherworldly beauty, catching the light like liquid jade. The color is so vivid, so impossibly perfect, that it stops conversations mid-sentence. What they don't know is that their gorgeous gowns are slowly killing them. The secret to that breathtaking green? Arsenic. Copper arsenite, to be exact. Mixed into the fabric dyes to create a color so brilliant that it became known as Scheele's green, after the Swedish chemist who invented it. Picture yourself at one of these balls. The heat from the gaslight and the warmth of dancing bodies causes the ladies to perspire slightly. That moisture activates the arsenic in their dresses, releasing toxic fumes that they breathe in with every breath. Their gloved hands touch their faces, their lips, transferring poison with every gesture. The symptoms started small. A headache here, a bit of nausea there. Easy to blame on tight corsets or rich food. But as the night wore on, some ladies would collapse right there on the dance floor. Others would make it home, only to spend days vomiting, their skin breaking out in mysterious sores. The most horrific case? A young bride in her wedding dress. The beautiful green silk train had been specially ordered from Paris. By the end of her wedding reception, she was violently ill. Within a week, she was dead. The cause? Arsenic poisoning from her own wedding gown. But here's the twisted part. Even when doctors started connecting the green dresses to mysterious deaths, the fashion industry fought back. The color was too profitable, too popular. Newspapers ran articles with titles like "Is Fashion Murder?" while dress shops continued selling poison wrapped in silk. Today, this would trigger international recalls, class action lawsuits, and criminal charges. The EPA would shut down any facility using arsenic in textiles faster than you could say environmental hazard. But if you think poisonous dresses were extreme, wait until you hear about a fashion trend that literally reshaped human bones. A practice so brutal that it crippled generations of women and would violate every human rights law we have today. The next trend on our list didn't just risk lives. It guaranteed lifelong suffering. Trend 3. Foot binding, beauty through broken bones. China, 960 AD. A mother sits beside her 4-year-old daughter in their candlelit room. In her hands, she holds long strips of white cloth. The little girl looks up trustingly, having no idea that what's about to happen will change her life forever. This is the beginning of foot binding. And what you're about to hear would constitute child abuse in every country on earth today. The mother begins by soaking her daughter's feet in warm water mixed with herbs and animal blood. Then, she starts folding the child's toes under her foot, breaking the small bones with a sickening crack that echoes through the room. The little girl screams, but her mother continues, wrapping the cloth tighter and tighter, forcing the broken bones to stay in their new, unnatural position. This wasn't a one-time event. Every few days, the bandages would be removed, the feet rewrapped even tighter. Over months and years, the bones would be systematically broken and rebroken, forcing the foot to fold in half until it was no longer than 3 inches. They called these mutilated feet lotus feet, and they were considered the height of beauty. But why? Why would loving parents do this to their own children? In Chinese society, bound feet meant marriageability. A girl with natural feet was considered unmarriageable, destined for a life of poverty and shame. Mothers genuinely believed they were giving their daughters the best possible future, even as they destroyed their ability to walk normally. The reality was horrific. Many girls died from infection as their broken bones festered under the tight bandages. Those who survived faced a lifetime of excruciating pain with every step. They couldn't run, couldn't work in the fields, could barely walk across a room without help. Imagine trying to explain this practice to a modern family court. "Your Honor, I broke my daughter's bones repeatedly to make her more attractive to future husbands." You'd lose custody immediately and face criminal charges for child abuse, assault, and causing grievous bodily harm. Yet for nearly 1,000 years, this was not just accepted but required. Mothers who refused to bind their daughters' feet were seen as neglectful, even cruel. The practice wasn't banned in China until 1912, and even then, it continued in secret for decades. Some of the last survivors of foot binding were still alive in the 1990s, elderly women whose childhood torture had been justified as love. But while Chinese mothers were breaking their daughters' bones for beauty, across the world, another culture was taking body modification to equally extreme levels. What's coming next involves needles, ink, and pain so intense that it was reserved only for the most elite members of society. And in today's world, it would violate workplace safety laws, health regulations, and probably constitute torture under international law. Trend 4. Traditional tattooing, ancient ink, ancient agony. Polynesia, 1400 AD. The rhythmic tapping echoes across the village as hundreds of people gather to witness a sacred ritual. A young chief lies motionless on a woven mat while the tattoo master, the tufuga, approaches with his tools. These aren't the sterile needles of a modern tattoo parlor. These are sharpened bones, boar tusks, and metal combs that will be hammered into flesh for days. The ink? A mixture of soot, tree sap, and sometimes human blood. The process they're about to witness would shut down any tattoo parlor in the Western world within hours. Traditional Polynesian tattooing, or tatau, wasn't just body art. It was a spiritual ordeal that could take weeks to complete. The tools were never sterilized between clients. The ink was mixed fresh from whatever materials were available. And the pain? So intense that many people passed out repeatedly during the process. Picture this young chief's experience. The tufuga dips his bone comb into the black mixture and places it against the skin. Then, using a wooden mallet, he begins hammering the needles through flesh, driving the ink deep into the muscle beneath. The sound alone would make your skin crawl, that wet, rhythmic tapping as metal punches through skin over and over and over. But here's where it gets worse. This would continue for 8 to 10 hours a day, for weeks at a time. The wounds would be left exposed to dirt, insects, and infection. Many recipients developed severe blood poisoning. Others died from infected tattoos that turned their entire limbs septic. In today's world, this practice would violate every health code imaginable. No sterilization protocols. No single-use needles. No regulated ink. No first aid training. It would be classified as operating an unlicensed medical facility and practicing without proper health certifications. But in traditional Polynesian society, surviving this ordeal proved your strength, your worthiness to lead. The more extensive your tattoos, the higher your status. Young men would risk death to earn the respect that came with intricate body art. The most tragic part? The social pressure was so intense that refusing tattooing meant exile from the community. You either endured the torture or lost your family, your home, your entire identity. But if you think dangerous body modification was extreme, our next trend takes us into territory that would horrify modern parents. We're talking about a practice that involved children, dangerous chemicals, and permanent disfigurement, all in the name of looking sophisticated. What's coming next was considered essential for any respectable family. Today, it would result in criminal charges and child protective services at your door. Trend 5. Hair powdering with toxic substances. Versailles, 1750. The morning ritual begins before dawn in the chambers of French nobility. A young aristocrat sits perfectly still while servants begin the process of transforming his hair into a towering white masterpiece. But this isn't just about style. What they're about to apply to his scalp would be classified as a hazardous chemical today. The powder coating his elaborate wig isn't harmless flour or cornstarch. It's a mixture containing lead, mercury, and arsenic. The same substances we now know cause cancer, brain damage, and death. But why powder hair at all? In 18th century Europe, white hair was a symbol of wisdom and respectability. Since most people couldn't wait decades to go gray naturally, they created shortcuts. Dangerous, toxic shortcuts. The process was elaborate and horrifying. First, the hair or wig would be coated with pomade made from animal fat, often rancid and crawling with insects. Then came the powder, blown onto the hair using bellows that filled the air with toxic dust. Everyone in the room breathed it in. The wearer, the servants, even pet dogs were found dead from powder inhalation. Picture yourself in one of these powdering sessions. The air is thick with white dust that burns your nose and makes your eyes water. You're trying not to breathe too deeply, but every inhale brings mercury vapor into your lungs. Your scalp is already starting to itch and burn where the lead-based powder touches your skin. The immediate effects were obvious. Hair loss, scalp sores, and respiratory problems were so common they were just accepted as the price of fashion. But the long-term effects were devastating. Neurological damage, kidney failure, and mysterious wasting diseases plagued the upper classes. Children as young as 5 were subjected to this routine daily. Their developing brains were especially vulnerable to the heavy metals in the powder. Many historians now believe the strange behaviors and early deaths among 18th century nobility were largely due to chronic heavy metal poisoning. The most disturbing part? Servants who applied the powder suffered even worse. They breathed the toxic dust for hours every day, developing what doctors now recognize as classic symptoms of mercury poisoning: tremors, tooth loss, and severe neurological damage. Today, this practice would violate child protection laws, workplace safety regulations, and environmental protection standards. Any facility using mercury or lead on humans would be shut down immediately and the owners prosecuted for criminal endangerment. But while Europeans were poisoning themselves with toxic hair powder, another civilization was taking fashion risks that would make modern safety inspectors have nightmares. What's coming next involves fire, molten metal, and beauty standards so extreme they make everything we've discussed look tame. Our next trend didn't just risk permanent disfigurement. It practically guaranteed it. Trend 6. Hot metal jewelry and scarification. Ancient Ethiopia, 800 BC. The fire crackles in the center of the village as young women gather for a ceremony that will mark their transition to adulthood. But this isn't a gentle rite of passage. What they're about to endure would constitute assault with a deadly weapon in today's legal system. The metal ornaments heating in the fire aren't just decorative. They are brands. Literal branding irons that will be pressed into flesh to create permanent scarification patterns across their bodies. Watch as the elder woman lifts the glowing metal from the flames. It's so hot it's nearly white, radiating heat that you can feel from across the fire. She approaches the first young woman, who lies perfectly still despite knowing what's coming. The metal touches skin with a hiss that makes everyone flinch. The smell of burning flesh fills the air as the girl bites down on a leather strap to keep from screaming. This wasn't a one-time event. Traditional scarification involved multiple sessions, each one adding new patterns and designs. Hot knives, heated metal combs, and burning coals were all used to create raised scars that would mark clan membership, spiritual beliefs, and personal achievements. But why endure such agony? In many African cultures, smooth skin was considered childish, even ugly. Scars showed that you could endure pain, that you were ready for the challenges of adult life. The more elaborate your scarification, the more respect you commanded. The medical reality was horrific. Many girls died from shock during the branding process. Others succumbed to infections as the burns became septic. Those who survived often suffered complications for years as their scarred skin cracked and bled with every movement. Imagine trying to operate such a practice today. You'd need medical licenses, sterile facilities, pain management protocols, and informed consent procedures. Instead, these ceremonies were performed in the open air with tools heated over cooking fires, often by people with no medical training whatsoever. The psychological trauma was just as severe as the physical damage. Many women reported nightmares and anxiety for years after scarification, but expressing fear or regret was considered shameful, even treasonous to cultural traditions. But all of these practices pale in comparison to our final trend. What's coming next involves an entire industry built around something so dangerous that it killed more people than wars. A fashion statement that literally shortened lifespans by decades. Our last trend didn't just risk individual lives. It poisoned entire communities. Trend 7. Mercury-based hat making. London, 1850. The workshop is thick with vapor as dozens of men bent over their workbenches, carefully shaping beaver felt into top hats. But that shimmer in the air isn't just steam from hot water. It's mercury vapor, and it's slowly driving every worker in this room insane. This is where the phrase "mad as a hatter" comes from. And what you're witnessing would be classified as industrial genocide today. The hat-making process required mercury to separate fur fibers from animal pelts. Workers would soak the pelts in mercury solutions, then breathe the toxic fumes for 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. The mercury didn't just stay on their hands. It seeped through their skin and into their bloodstreams, traveling directly to their brains. The symptoms were unmistakable. First came the tremors, hands that shook so violently they could barely hold their tools. Then the personality changes. Sudden rage, deep depression, and paranoid delusions. Finally, complete mental breakdown. Many hatters ended their careers in asylums, their minds completely destroyed by the mercury they'd breathed for years. But the industry knew. By 1860, doctors had clearly connected hat making to neurological disease. Yet production continued because mercury-processed hats were lighter, more water-resistant, and held their shape better than any alternative. Today, this would trigger international industrial safety investigations, class action lawsuits worth billions, and criminal prosecutions for knowingly exposing workers to deadly toxins. So there you have it. 7 fashion trends from our past that would be illegal, immoral, and utterly unthinkable today. From lead-painted faces to mercury-fueled madness, our ancestors paid prices for beauty that we can barely comprehend. But here's the question that should haunt us. What are we doing right now that future generations will look back on with the same horror? What chemicals in our cosmetics? What processes in our fashion industry? What beauty standards are we accepting today that our grandchildren will see as barbaric? The truth is, the drive for beauty, for status, for fitting in, that hasn't changed. What's changed is our understanding of the cost. Our ancestors weren't monsters. They were people just like us, trying to look their best in a world that judged them harshly for their appearance. The difference is we have regulations, safety testing, and scientific knowledge they could never imagine. We have the privilege of choosing beauty without death. But only if we use it. The next time you consider what you'll do for fashion, remember the Renaissance ladies with their lead-white faces, the Victorian women in their poisonous green gowns, and the children whose feet were broken for beauty. Remember them, and choose wisely. Because fashion may be eternal, but life is not.